Our second reading today is from the Gospel according to Matthew chapter 22, verses 15 to 22. Then the Pharisees went out and plotted to entrap him in what he said. So they sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are sincere and teach the way of God in accordance with truth, and show deference to no one, for you do not regard people with partiality. Tell us then what you think. Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, "Why are you putting me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the tax." And they brought him a denarius. Then he said to them, "Whose head is this and whose title?" They answered, "Caesar's." Then he said to them, "Give therefore to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." When they heard this, they were amazed, and they left him and went away. And may God speak to us through these verses today. I don't know anyone who likes to pay taxes, right? But most of us do it anyway, mostly because it's the law. Some people hate taxes so much they refuse to pay, or they find ways to sneak around them. Some refuse to pay because they consider them unfair. Why should the government get to take a chunk of my hard-earned money? Other people refuse for moral or religious reasons. They don't want their money supporting policies or actions that they believe are wrong. And this also was a big issue in Jesus' time. The Roman Empire had conquered Israel and forced a tax on them. This tax was on top of the taxes that the Jews already paid on to their own government. But of course, many of these Jewish people considered Rome their hated enemy, even God's enemy. And so it really upset them to have to pay their enemy. Now, the Romans also minted their own coins that had the image of Caesar on them. Caesar at this time was Tiberius, who, like most of the Caesars, had declared himself divine, a god. And so for many Jews, these coins were very sinful and blasphemous. They broke the commandment against false gods and graven images. So for them, Caesar was not just this person. He was a symbol of the empire, he was an enemy, and he was even a false god. Now, this sets the stage for two groups who try to set a trap for Jesus, the Pharisees and the Herodians. The Pharisees hated Rome and wanted them out. The Herodians, on the other hand, collaborated with Rome and thought the empire wasn't really so bad. But both of these groups agreed, we got to get rid of this Jesus. So they come to him and say, "Rabbi, we know you're sincere. We know you teach the way of God. You're not partial to anyone. Should we pay taxes to Caesar or not?" They are testing Jesus to make him take a side to declare his loyalty. But it is, as usual, a setup. If Jesus supports the tax, they can accuse him of betraying his own people and maybe even of betraying God. If he condemns the tax, they can then accuse him of treason against Caesar and the empire. So either way, Jesus loses. But of course, Jesus is pretty clever. So he asks them, whose image and title are on this coin? Well, Caesar. Then give to Caesar what belongs to him, but give to God what belongs to God. Now, did he answer their question or not? We're told that both groups were amazed at his answer and went away. Apparently, neither of them got the answer they wanted. The trap failed. Because, in a sense, what Jesus did was to put the question back on them, to make them decide for themselves what belongs to Caesar and what belongs to God. And that's actually a question that we all still have today to answer. We don't live under Roman Empire, but empires have always existed. An empire is any vast political, economic, and military system. Today, American politics, economics, and military pretty much call the shots in the world. That makes us today's empire. Now, empires are rarely completely good or completely evil. We know, for example, that many good things came out of the Roman Empire, even though the Jews considered them evil and ungodly. There's an old movie I absolutely love called The Life of Brian. It is a very witty but irreverent comedy about life in Israel during the time of Jesus. In one scene, a group of Jewish rebels are plotting to overthrow the Romans, and their leader says, "What have the Romans done for us anyway?" And a little voice pipes up and says, "Well, they did build roads and bridges for us." And the leader thinks for a moment and says, "Well, yeah, they did that. But except for roads and bridges, what have the Romans done for us?" And another little voice says, "Well, they did make waterways so we can get fresh, clean water." "Yeah, okay, they did that too." And another voice says, "Well, they also gave us medicine. They keep other countries from attacking us," and so on. The point being, there will always be empires, and they will always do good things and bad things. "Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar," says Jesus, "but give to God what belongs to God." The answer is actually trickier than it might sound. Is Jesus putting God and Caesar on an equal footing with equal claims on us? Not likely. Should anything or anyone have a stronger claim on us than God? Here's a question I sometimes ask. Are we Americans who happen to be Christians, or are we Christians who happen to be Americans? Christian, American, which one comes first? Which one has our deeper loyalty? I remember reading a minister who once received a letter from someone, this is many years ago, in his congregation complaining about one of his sermons that touched on a hot current issue. The letter said, "This is not a time for naysaying and criticism of the administration's policy. This is a time for Americans to stand together, to stand with our leaders and show we are loyal Americans." However, that kind of uncritical loyalty is not appropriate for those of us who claim to follow Jesus Christ. During the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln once said that what matters most is not whether God is on our side, but whether we are on God's side. That should be our standard too. And as one writer puts it, let us not forget Caesar and the empire need to be redeemed too. Now, throughout our lives, each and every day, we are faced with choices, big and small. How we spend our time, how we spend our money, what we give our passion to, our commitment to. Another writer suggests that Jesus' answer about taxes indicates that we should make all of our choices, no matter what it's about, by first asking, whose image is on this? Whose power and authority does it represent? Who does this serve? Caesar or God? Now, sometimes it's easy to tell. Sometimes it's not. And we may not always make the right choice. But that's when we trust in the love and grace of God. In these verses, Jesus does not spell out in detail what belongs to Caesar or God. But maybe he does offer us a clue. Whose image is on this coin, he asked, and it is Caesar. So maybe the next question then might be, well, where do we find God's image? Well, we are told that we are created in God's image. Caesar mints coins with his image stamped on them, but according to the Bible, we are minted by God. Each of us with God's image stamped on us. And if that's the case, then we, my friends, are God's coins. And if that is the case, we should spend ourselves wisely on the things of God, not of Caesar. Amen.